Good afternoon. It is exactly 1300 hours. My name is Olive Burrows and you're watching NTV at 1. 48% of Kenyans believe that the country is headed in the wrong direction, and that is according to a new poll by research and consulting firm Infotrack. And the high cost of living, rampant corruption and unemployment are said to be to blame. The report has it that 21% of participants who took part in the poll blame President Uhuru Kenyatta for taking the country in the wrong direction.
So we see that the top 5 reasons that people feel the country is headed in the wrong direction, first of all, is life is difficult. People can't actually afford to earn their keep and survive with what they're earning. Inflation is high, the cost of goods, cost of living is too high for your typical Kenyan. Probably for all of us sitting in this room, we're feeling it is difficult to survive a lot more than it was maybe a couple of years ago. So that's why 55% are saying that. And we're linking it to the fact that there is things that need to be done better. The country needs to be governed better. And so you see that, a third of us are saying there is still rampant corruption. What are we going to do about corruption? And we can link that to poor governance that is mentioned by 10%. And then, of course, we see about 20% mentioning unemployment as the reason why they feel the country is going in the wrong direction. Apart from the president, there is also the watchdog that is meant to ensure that government is kept in check. And what many of Kenyans are saying is the watchdog is asleep. The watchdog is not doing its job. The watchdog has resigned from its role. So there is no opposition right now. And we can actually see the effects of them not doing their role due to the reduced popularities for the opposition parties. ODM currently standing at 21%, a party that traditionally used to enjoy 50 to 70% popularity.
Well, speaking of suspected corruption, the Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary General Wilson Sossion now wants the Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha investigated over an alleged 13 billion shilling textbook scandal. Sossion, who spoke during NAT's annual general meeting in Kiambu, also urged the teachers to dismiss the competency-based curriculum.
Class 4, they have not received any textbooks all over the country. Then what is Magoha doing in Jogo? He should resign and go home. If there are no books in class 4, there are no books in class 5, there are no books in class 6. When I speak those things, wanasema Sossion anafanya siasa. Is that not the truth? It is a big center of corruption, even infrastructure money. We don't need to dish out infrastructure money as if it is a token.
Lands Cabinet Secretary Farida Karone has ordered an immediate audit of all public land in Mombasa. The CS says this will enable the government start the process of issuing title deeds to public institutions such as schools and hospitals. Karone, who was in Mombasa on Saturday, also raised concerns over a huge number of deeds lying uncollected at the Lands Registry Office. Kevin Mutai with the details.
The Ministry of Lands has called on landowners in the coast region to collect their title deeds, which have been collecting dust on the shelves of the registry department for years.
Tutapanga program na county commissioner tutoe hizo title deeds kwa registry tuwapatie wenyewe. Na zile ziko na issues za succession, pengine tuongea na machiefs watusaidie tujue familia gani hawana wenye mashamba waliaga ili tuweze kuwasaidia. Lakini kama wewe familia yako iko hapa Pwani, tafadhali go and pick your title deeds. Msituachie pale ofisini.
Area leaders who accompanied the seers raised concerns over land grabbing in the coast region, saying it is becoming more rampant. They said that most of the grabbers are now targeting public utility land, including schools, hospitals, and even police stations.
Nimekuelezea kuhusiana na Khadija Estate ambao maskini wanataka kunyang'anywa nyumba yao kwa kifua na matajiri wachache. Leo nikizungumza na wewe nimekuelezea kuhusiana na ploti 144 MN section 1, ploti nambari 106 ya Kongowea ambao tayari wamepewa eviction letter waondoke, na mimi leo kama mbunge wenu nawaambia musiondoke na musiende popote.
Nyinyi mnafanya kazi vizuri kama wizara, lakini kuna baadhi ya wafanyakazi wenu hasa masorovea wanaungana na mabwenyenye hapo Pwani kutupokonya ardhi zetu. Hiyo ofisi yenu hapa Pwani, wale ambao wanashirikiana na watu ili kuibia ama kwa dhulumu wa Pwani, wafukuzeni, hatuna haja nao.
The CS now wants an immediate audit of all public land in Mombasa and the entire coastal region to enable the government start the process of issuing title deeds.
Be the whistleblowers, nyinyi lazima mtuambie pale kuna matatizo ili tuje tuchukue hizo assets turudishie wenyewe. Wenyewe ni wananchi wa Kenya. Na county commissioner wetu pia akiwasiliana na officials wa Ministry of Lands, tunataka kuweka ratiba or list of all public lands hapa Pwani.
Residents also urged the Ministry of Lands to address the issue of squatters in the region. Kevin Mutai, NTV, Mombasa.
The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, has appointed an 8-member task force to make recommendations on the establishment and operations of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Inspectorate. The appointed members are Justice Retired Bernard Chunga as a chairperson, Rita Wambui Kuria as a vice chairperson, Abdirahman Abdillahi, Lawrence Nyale and Louis Francesi as members. Lilian Obuo is the joint secretary, while Miriam Ngari and Lucy Muhuni form the secretariat. The team will be in office for 30 days and thereafter submit its report to the DPP. The inspectorate will be critical in the ODPP's mandate of undertaking prosecution of criminal matters and providing just, fair and independent public prosecution services. The task force will formulate guidelines for the inspection of operations in the ODPP. Now for some politics, Deputy President William Ruto's allies want President Uhuru Kenyatta to discipline cabinet secretaries who are disrespectful to the DP. Speaking in Rongai, Nakuru County, during the burial ceremony of former Rongai Member of Parliament Willie Kiprop Komen, the leaders urged the president and his deputy to abide to the Afraha Stadium Unity Pact.
Hatuwezi kukubali kuwa na makatibu na mawaziri katika serikali ya Uhuru Kenyatta ambao wengine wameanza kuigawanya eti kuna wale wa naibu rais na kuna wale wa rais. Mpaka what courage does a minister have answering the deputy president back? Yet when the president is not there, the chairman of the cabinet is the deputy president. Where do you get the courage to even answer both?
And so for those cabinet secretaries who think that they can go ahead and respond very rudely or in whichever manner they want to the deputy president, wajue tumeona wengi before them, many have come and gone, many sycophants and others have come and gone, and Kenya still stands. So even after them, tutaendelea tu na itakuwa sawa.
Now to security matters, leaders from Baringo are now asking the residents of the county to allow the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to do its work in resolving the border crisis there. The leaders spoke as the recurring border clashes on the boundaries of Loruk, Mukutani and Kapedo sparked fresh tension in the area, leading to residents fleeing their homes and losing livestock to cattle rustlers. Wasi Ngishu Governor Jackson Mandago, who is also the chairman of the North Rift Economic Bloc NOREB, urged the residents to direct their energies to development as opposed to the boundaries issues that have derailed the region's progress. At the same time, local leaders decried the rising insecurity cases in the region that they say have been escalated by the disarmament decree.
Wajue kwamba we have a conflict here. Tuko na conflict hapa. Na si mzuri tufunike kila wakati. Si mzuri tufunike tuseme kwamba tuko salama, tuko hivi, tuko hivi, tuko hivi.
That these arms were being taken back, and that is what Matiang'i told us, that the arms were being taken back so that a rigorous disarmament exercise is done. But unfortunately, that exercise has not begun.
While we are doing the census, they should also come in handy to indicate to us on these boundary issues. Because boundary issues is about other factors, not about settlement. Those that are settling here at this place are all dialect.
Mambo ya boundary tuachie IBC. Na mimi nataka kuadvise IBC. Kwa sababu wako na jukumu la kureview boundaries. Hakuna haja hawa wafikirie vile watareview boundaries za Kenya. Kaunti ya Uasin Gishu sisi hatuna matatizo na maneno ya boundary. Wa concentrate kwa kaunti ambazo hasifiki 10 taifa hii ambayo iko na matatizo ya boundary. Wamalizane naye.
Staying with matter security, elders and youth from Pokot and Turkana communities have signed a peace pact to end cattle rustling and border conflict that has caused animosity between the two neighboring communities. The team, drawn from Turkana and West Pokot counties, converged in Kitale town to discuss ways to end the perennial conflict that has hampered development along the border. The elders and leaders from the two communities vowed to preach peace and help end the violent border conflict. The elders have set a series of peace meetings along the border to preach peace and reconcile the two warring communities.
Tulipata root cause ya amani kuharibika na tukasema ya kwamba sasa tutaenda kufanya nini?
Tunafanya kwa vyovyote vile kuhakikisha kwamba kuna amani, lakini bado kuna changamoto kubwa haswa kwa upande wa serikali kuu.
The boda business is a massive employer for the youth in most parts of the country, especially so for young men. The boda business, with all its attendant risks, has been a no-go zone for women, but one teenager in Ruai is challenging this narrative. Here is her story.
At only 19 years, Josephine Mbugwa is slowly but surely carving out a path for women in a venture dominated by men. Barely a year into the business, Josephine is already commanding a huge customer base. Her customers prefer her services to those of her male colleagues. Josephine says she ventured into the business after she dropped out of school in Form 2 due to lack of school fees. She says life was not easy as she struggled to meet her basic needs. Tired of her economic situation, she approached boda operators seeking to be trained.
Napata na vijana na wagotea na waambia wanifundishe nduthi juu naweza taka pia kujua kuendesha. Walinifunza pole tu hadi siku moja nikaamua Sundays ndio nilianzanga kubeba.
Getting a trainer was not an easy task, since majority of those she initially approached took her request as a joke. Josephine remained focused and persistent despite the stereotypes. Today, she is the most sought boda rider in Ruai town, Githunguri, and Utawala.
Sasa natambulika na bebata watu wawili na siogopi. Naenda hadi Kagundo Road siogopi siku hizi. Nabeba vizuri.
For the young lady, time is money. During off-peak hours, Josephine washes cars for an extra earning. Josephine's counterparts have come to respect her work ethic, many describing her as a humble and hard-working girl. Mary Beffin, NTV.
Early pregnancy continues to contribute to the high number of dropouts among school-going girls, even as the debate on lowering the age of consent to 16 years continues. According to leaders in Baringo County, early marriage continues to be a major concern, and some parents perceive sexual relationships between school-going girls and boys in the area as normal. The leaders slammed those advocating for the reduction of the age of sex consent to 16, explaining that it would lead to more dropouts.
Wasichana wadogo wanapata mimba. Unapata wasichana wakiwa primary schools wanapata mimba. Watoto wakipata ni kama wale wengine wako nje. Watu wamechukua mambo ya urafiki ya zamani kama kawaida. Lakini lazima tuwe strict kama wazazi, kama viongozi kupupisha mambo ya mimba ya mapema kwa shule. Kwa sababu watoto wetu wakipata mimba mapema wanakuwa useless na wanakuwa bure na ndio wanakuwa misused mpaka wanakuja kuolewa na wasee.
Wengi wa wanafunzi hawa wana shida ya kulipa karo za shule. Kisa na maana ni kwamba wengi wa wanafunzi hawa walitoroka nyumbani kwa sababu ya kulazimishwa kwa ndoa ya mapema.
Tambo ilikuwa 21, tukapunguza tukasema 18. Sasa juzi, now we want to make it 16. Bure sana watu. It's very wrong. There is no way we can allow that. Huh? In the name of human rights, you see, this is Africa. We have African culture. Ile ya wazungu, tuachie wazungu. Haona mnaga.
The Kenya University Staff Union has appealed to the Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, to quickly consider and convene an urgent stakeholders meeting that will come up with a way forward in confronting the challenges facing public universities. The union has rejected the proposal by the government to employ workers strictly on contract terms.
We are saying call the stakeholders will come up with views. Whether we'll say, yes, go ahead and close 1 or 2 or 3, the stakeholders are the ones who can then say, do that. And I'm sure they'll give reasons as to why that should be done. But not the cabinet secretary sitting in Jogo House and spewing decrees as if this country is not governed by laws. No, it's not right.
On the international scene, Sudan is braced for a mass protest today in the capital against the country's ruling generals as calls mount for restraint to prevent a new military crackdown on demonstrators. The planned million-man march is seen as a test for protest organizers who on June the 3rd were hit by a raid at a Khartoum sit-in and a subsequent internet blackout that has curbed their ability to mobilize support.
The new protest comes at a time when Ethiopia and the African Union are jointly mediating between the protesters and generals. Protesters have voiced fears of new violence. Dozens of demonstrators were killed and hundreds were wounded when armed men in military fatigue stormed the sit-in outside army headquarters, shooting and beating protesters who had camped there since April 6th. The umbrella protest movement, the Alliance for Freedom and Change, said demonstrators will launch rallies from several areas in Khartoum and its twin city of Omdurman and march to residences of some protesters killed in the June 3rd raid. The chief of the military council, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, however, told a rally in Omdurman that the generals were ready to give up power.
We are building a new Sudan. We are ready to negotiate with all those who want to build Sudan. We are ready to cede power today to an elected government that is acceptable to all the power of Sudan.
But as he ended his speech, the crowd began chanting, civilian rule, end blood for blood, two prominent slogans of the protest movement that has rocked the country. About 130 people have been killed since the June 3rd crackdown, according to doctors close to the protest movement. The health ministry says 61 people died nationwide on the day of the crackdown. The ruling military council insists it did not order the dispersal, but acknowledged excesses after orders were given to purge a nearby area notorious for drug peddling.
Further afield, U.S. President Donald Trump today voiced a willingness to welcome North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to Washington as the two men held historic discussions in the demilitarized zone dividing the Koreas. Earlier today, Trump stepped into North Korean territory, the first time a sitting U.S. president has ever set foot in the former enemy country. In a historic moment, Trump walked across the concrete blocks dividing North and South Korean territory in the demilitarized zone that divides the peninsula, where the two sides fought each other to a standstill in the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. The pair met for the third time after summits in Singapore last year, and a second meeting in Hanoi in February collapsed without an agreement.
I want to say that this is my honor. I didn't really expect it. We were in Japan for the G20. We came over and I said, hey, I'm over here. I want to call Chairman Kim. And we got to meet, and stepping across that line was a great honor. A lot of progress has been made. A lot of friendships have been made, and this has been in particular a great friendship. So I just want to thank you. That was
Born visually impaired, Alice Bonareri epitomizes disability not being inability. A trained teacher by profession, Alice is a recording music artist with 4 albums to her name, owns a music studio, and works as a production manager at a publishing company for Braille books. She shared her journey of resilience and giving back to society with Gladys Gashanja in this week's Women and Power.
Ninaitwa Alice Bonareri aka Bonabi. Nilizaliwa na shida ya kutoona. Nilienda shule ya wasioona ya Kibo School for the Blind primary. Alafu nikaenda secondary Thika School for the Blind. Ndio nikamalizia Kenyatta University. Nilianza kuimba nikiwa mtoto mchanga tu, nikiwa shule ya msingi. Albamu yangu ya kwanza nimerekodi nikiwa university mwaka wa kwanza. Kenyatta University 2007. Nikakuja nikarecord album yangu ya pili inaitwa Nararire, I've Slept and Forgotten That the Lord is Coming Back, in the year 2015. In the same year, I did another album called Naikwa Weneire, You're Worthy, O Lord. And then in the year 2019, I did another one, Ahadi Zako. Music has done so much for me. It has made me connect with great men and women of God. It has made me sit and dine with kings. Because like the last one I had, I was invited by State House to sing for the president at Madaraka in Narok. Kuna wazazi akiona mtoto wake akona shida, wanampembeleza, wanambeba. So mtoto hajui chochote. Lakini wazazi wangu wakati waligundua siwezi kulima shambani, wazazi wangu walisema kwamba kama huwezi kulima, enda uoshe vyombo, enda panguza, enda fagia. So nilipata hiyo kukaa, kujikubali.
Some of the challenges ulipitia ni kama zipi?
Nasikia watu wanakusengenya tu, tokea huyu mlevi asikugonge kwa barabara. Saa zingine unaambia mtu nisaidie kuvuka barabara, tafadhali niende on the other side. Mtu anaona ni kama unamdanganya, unampeleka the other side, uende unampeleka kwa wakora wengine. Mwambie tumemsalimia. Kutokana na huu muziki nilifungua foundation inaitwa Bonabi Foundation. We give back to the society. I'm free kusema ukweli, tulipatana, baba yake aliniona on social media. Alinipata on Facebook, akanitumia message. Kaniambia mimi niko, kwa sababu nimeangalia profile yako naona wewe ni mlemavu. Kusema ukweli huyu mtoto wetu tumemficha sana kwa sababu hatujakubali. Na akaniambia walivyozaa huyu mtoto mamake alitoroka. Ile iliniguza sana ni kwamba huyu mtoto anawekwa ndani ya sufuria, anatembezwa. Then babake akaniambia, me the only thing I need from you people, the only thing I need ni mtoto wangu apate at least wheelchair, kwa sababu kwa hiyo sufuria ndani ana hiyo freedom ya movement.
Kwa kweli tulipochuana na Alice, kutoka wakati huo nilianza kukubali mtoto wangu, nikaanza kumkubali mtoto wangu ni mlemavu, na nikaanza kuwa free. Hata kwa post za Facebook yangu napata naeka mtoto wangu akiwa mlemavu namna hiyo. So niko proud of him.
Wazazi ama guardians wale ushughulikia watoto wenye wako na ulemavu, unaweza kuwa kwamba umeficha baraka.
Alice Bonariri is indeed a true inspiration to us all. Now for some more inspiration, but this time on the soccer pitch in sports with Ida Waringa.
Thanks for that, Olive. And I do have to say, beautiful, beautiful story there on women in power. But let's get into the world of sports, starting things off with some football, where defending champions Cameroon remain top of Group F after a goalless draw with Ghana at the Africa Cup of Nations to headline a day of goalless stalemates at the Nations Cup. Later in the group, Benin and Guinea-Bissau drew 0-0. Now, for Cameroon, with 4 points after 2 games, it should be enough to reach the knockout phase, but Ghana